Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Open Wounds Podcast. I have a guest with me today. Her name is Donna Kendall. She is a coach and an entrepreneur. Her website and brand is called Ignite Your Soul. And today she's going to talk with us a little bit about her work with the subconscious and changing your life and bringing things into your reality that you want to see in your life. So welcome, Donna, to the podcast.
Thank you, Candace. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much. So usually I like to ask, how did you end up doing the work you're doing? What led you to this career path and this, interest in working with the subconscious and coaching and all those fun things?
Yeah. Um, well, everybody has something that's in their past. I was adopted within the family and taken home from the hospital by a single mother who was just an amazing role model. And she was a working woman, single mom, and just incredible. I had really a great childhood. And then when I was 12 years old, she passed away, cancer. And at 12 years old, I went to stay with some cousins that I really didn't know, and I just closed up. So as you might imagine, I didn't know how to handle that situation. I didn't have anybody to help me handle that situation really well. And so I just closed up. When I think back of it, my heart, and lived in my head. So I just was always on guard, lived in my head. I struggled through high school. I was an incredible student up until this happened. And then I struggled in high school. And looking back, and now that I know, what was really happening, I was struggling because my brain was used, all my resources in my brain were used for fight or flight. I was in a constant state of fight or flight and stress, and so I didn't have the resources to use for school. So then, I did make it through school, and I went directly into the military. And, it was a great experience. And I think because I just needed that structure. The military creates that structure. And I was in just for 4 years. I got married pretty young, and then was in the military for 4 years. And then when I got out, that process in and of itself freed up some resources for me to go to school and get my degree. So in that process, though, what I just was always in my head trying to figure out, how do you fit into society? What is success? What do you do to make you happy, etc. So I was able to make it work in the corporate environment, and I married an individual that was I mean, it's emotionally unavailable, which, didn't really have that closeness, but that's what I needed. But he was very structured. So he was very structured, routine oriented. I knew everything about it. And I think that environment just allowed me to relax a little bit. But there was always something in the back of my mind that I can't really put my finger on it, just that I knew I was working and living in a limited state,
Yeah.
And so there was always kind of this question in the back of my mind, like, what's going on? So I tried the therapy for a little bit because I was uncomfortable in any situation that I was in, even though in the corporate environment, what's really crazy, Candace, in the corporate environment, they promote and reward women who, what I was projecting to them was strength and confidence, but it was not a real strength and confidence. It was like that forceful strength and confidence. It's like, this is who I had to be because I didn't, I didn't know any different. And it was that guarded confidence and strength. But it worked. But there was always that thing in the back of my mind of I just never felt comfortable in who I was. I never felt comfortable in environment. I didn't feel comfortable talking to people. I just didn't, I didn't know who I was. I ran all those personality tests to try and figure out, had someone try and tell me who I was, because I was so disconnected from it.
Yeah.
Um, and then what led me to this work is that I found this program, and the very first line of the program was that no two brains are alike, and what you are living in your head is unique to you, and it's nothing like anybody else. And I was just like, because it was the brain, I started going into it, figuring out the brain. Like, why do I feel like this? Why do I like it? And that just, snowballed. It just continued to go. And I just continued to follow it. Then I went to energy, and then I went to, really the subconscious. And then I learned a program that freed me from a lot of these barriers, and that was a program that neutralized those subconscious. And you weren't hypnotized. It's very gentle. It's a process through commands. There's two parts to a memory, is that there's the emotional part to the memory and the content part of the memory.
Right.
And it's the emotional part that we get stuck on, because that's the part that creates anxiety, the anger, the whatever that is. And so we get stuck and we never go further. Well, that just kind of neutralizes that. So I was in that program for a couple of years, and I was like, wow, this has just changed my life. So then I became certified in that program. And I really believe, with, every ounce of what I have, is that what they say is absolutely true. 95% of our awareness, our consciousness, is subconsciously. Like we think we're conscious, and we're talking, and we're making decisions and choices, and we're really not. Many of us, I was asleep, and I say that in the way, asleep for years, because when you are running unconsciously, which means you're letting the programs in your brain. That's a power of our brain, because it's efficient. When you just let them run, then you're just getting those programs that you've learned and you've programmed in there, and they just continue to run. So, it's been quite a journey, but it really has been that thing that's allowed me to free myself from a lot of those binds that were keeping me stuck. And then, I was able to shift from my mind down into my heart in that process, and realize that I had a heart.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's so many things I want to pick up on at what you said. The first was talking about your childhood. You very clearly, kind of had a attachment disruption, right? So you lost the person that you loved and you relied on, and so you kind of went within as a protective mechanism. And then as you grew, you craved that security and that safety in the military and in your marriage, but also your marriage was reflecting, like, I don't trust to have a relationship because I don't want to be wounded again. So I'm going to
Yes.
pick this guy who's emotionally unavailable, but it's going to give me the structure and the stability and security
Yes.
that I'm craving, right? And so then that was one thing I was like, I definitely identify with that, where when you've had something happen to you in your childhood, your behaviors start to play out in all your other relationships, right? And then the other thing you talked about with that program, with the mind and the emotions. And so this is what I hit up against in my own journey. I had been doing cognitive behavior therapy for like a long time, over a decade. And I got to this place where I was like, I cognitively know that this caused this and that this experience created this, but I couldn't get it out of my emotional body state.
Yes.
It was like, I
Yes.
kept telling my therapist, I was like, it's like my body and my emotions are not on the same page as my brain. And so my brain is telling me, you're safe. you're fine. That this situation is not your childhood, but my body and my emotions were going, we don't get it. We don't get it. And so this program sounds fascinating because I think that so much of traditional therapy is missing that somatic emotional component. It's very
Yes.
brain based, and
Yes.
it's not
Cognitive,
getting down.
intellectual.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
getting down to the root of the stuff that's stored in our cells, basically, and that we're reacting from this place that we can't override it with our brain, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. You can understand so much cognitively. Let's just take you read a book. And you know, I still have lots and lots of books, but this blew my mind too. Okay, so you read a book, you create these connections, these mental connections, but if you don't do anything with that information, if you don't immerse it, if you don't create it into a habit, if you don't do anything, it it stays intellectual. It doesn't change your life.
Right.
And that's what you're talking about is this when it remains that intellectual process and the subconscious is still running. You know, I just did this TikTok about if you say, should I leave this job? And the thing was, that's the wrong question to ask because you're already in this limited self. Because the way that this works is you have your subconscious. All right. So let's just say you have this subconscious narrative, this thing that created that you knew when you were younger. That part is tied to these thoughts and these emotions, and that's the first thing that runs is that when you have this, it's automatically affecting what you think and what you feel, and that's usually the process that gets us stuck, especially if we're not in the present moment and we don't have tools. Then we automatically run this emotion, and now it's a biochemical process, and it's almost it's hard to stop when it becomes a biochemical process that's running. But let's just say you start with this subconscious constraint, and then that goes into thoughts and feelings. So that drives what you think and what you feel. It drives your decisions and your actions, and then it drives your outcome. So if you're saying, do I need to leave this job? You're already going to the action, like you bypassing the root of it, the
Yeah.
root of the problem. Oh, do I need to leave this job? Well, that's an action. That is not addressing the problem. That's not the question to ask. The question to ask is to say, all right, what about this is causing this disruption in me? It's having the tools to go back and question it. And what is it that's causing the tools? And what is the story that I'm telling myself about this? Because we create our reality. So there's certain things that we call facts, but they're not really facts. They're because they're filtered by and distorted by what we perceive them to be. But let's just say you take the facts. This is what happened. I went to the store and I was going down the street and I saw this dog, and then all of a sudden I got crazy, and I couldn't figure out. I dropped the groceries and I couldn't figure it out, and I ran. And why did I do that? Well, you just go through and you write down the facts. Okay, I went to the grocery store, saw this dog. All right, then you say, what is the story that I'm telling myself about that? And you start to explore that story, and then you're going to come, what would someone have to believe to create that story? And that's your belief. That starts with that subconscious constraint, is that you create this belief of what you believe about the world, and then you question it. And a lot of times you can do this work if there's small little subconscious things. You can question it. And what you find is that it's not true, that it's not really what you believe about yourself. It's not true. And when you question it, you can say, well, what is it that I really believe? What is it that I really believe about this? And then that will be enough for you to kind of switch your mindset. The problem that happens is we never go back and reflect and question it. We never create space for these things that are happening. So they just run. So then you feel bad. I dropped the groceries. You're embarrassed. You go back into those old feelings.
Mhm.
And then you go on about your, you get over that. You wake up in the morning, you go on about your day. And then you think, so it's really creating that space. It's being aware. It's being, present to what's going on. What are you feeling and what's happening? Because we program this all of this parts of us, and you probably know that most of that gets programmed in the first 7 to 8 years because children are just recording.
Yeah.
They're in a different chemical brainwave when you're young. So you're just recording everything around you. All of your beliefs, everything that you think about is all recorded. So what mine was, because I was adopted and then my mother passed when I was 12, I lived with this lens. I was looking through this lens that I'm not wanted. And so that's why I was so uncomfortable. Everywhere I went, it was because I was feeling like I wasn't wanted.
Mhm.
And so your subconscious will create that reality for
Yes.
you. You will be attracted to people then who, who aren't attached to you, because that's what you see. It actually, when I say lens, it actually creates
Yeah.
what you see and experience. Yeah.
That's fascinating. It reminds me of like a projector where you can put different slides.
Yes.
I don't know. People who are millennials may not even know what the hell I'm talking about. But when I was a kid, there was like a glass projector with like a lamp, and it shot onto the wall, and you could put
Yes.
it was like the paper was see through, but it had words
Yes.
on it. But you could stack like 6 of them on there, and it would make a
Yes.
crazy image. But it's projecting out because it's a lens that's covered and covered and covered. But came up when you were talking about the should I quit my job? I have a perfect example of this. So I was working in social work for a decade, and I kept thinking, this job is toxic. This boss is toxic. I need to leave this company, this nonprofit, because they're the problem, this industry. So I hopped from different nonprofits because I kept running into the same thing. My bosses and I wouldn't get along. I would feel like I was being taken advantage of or bullied or whatever. And so then I was like, well, it's the industry. I'm going to go
Yes.
into interior design, which is what I do now. And I went to work for someone else. And suddenly here I am faced with the same scenario, my coworkers and
Yes.
people treating me the exact same way. And I had an epiphany, which for God's sakes, it took me 10 years to figure this out. But I had the epiphany, oh, this is a me thing. This is me, and I'm creating this dynamic
Oh,
somehow,
beautiful.
right? And so still at the time, even though I'd figured the pattern out and I figured out, okay, something I'm doing is bringing this into reality, right?
Yes.
And so I took a different approach because I was working with my therapist who does mostly cognitive behavior, and we did like an intervention action where I had a confrontational talk with the people I was working with, or I would have a discussion with the manager and be like, I'm not going to stay here if this is how people are going to talk to me. And it did make a change, but the next job I went to, it comes back, it keeps coming back in like a different form, and it's like reduced in its intensity. But because I haven't got to the like you said, the film or the layer or the lens that's saying I am a victim, I am somebody's like I am, I attract bullies or whatever it is that belief and that programming is from childhood, because I haven't actually reworked that belief, it still comes up sometimes. And so now I'm
Yeah.
like having an aha moment as we're talking about this.
Yeah, and it can be something. I mean, what came up for me, and it may not fit, but I'm not safe. And when you feel like you're not safe, you think, okay, I'm going to create a safety. No, you create the opposite of it. You
Yes.
actually attract you
Yeah,
attract everything that
exactly.
you don't want in
Yes.
there. And so, the beautiful thing really, if I could, tell everybody what's the one thing, it's that everything in your life is a mirror, and it's just showing you what is going on in here and
Mm-hmm.
what you still can release and let go of and free yourself from.
Yeah.
It really is. And for the longest time, I was a victim. I was a victim to my circumstances, and I can see that so clearly. Now, if you would have had that conversation with me and said, Donna, you're being a victim, I would have probably argued with you. But
Yeah.
now I see it so clearly that we're victim to circumstances, and I would blame everything outside of myself. It was that fault. Or I would judge, which again is just a protection
Yes.
mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody's in this state where they're constantly coming up against the same patterning and reliving the same experiences, how do they basically go in, figure out what the underlying thing is, and then start to rewrite their beliefs? Basically, you have to
Yeah.
create a new reality, right?
Yeah. And it all depends, Candace, on the level of severity, because I call them rocks and boulders. So the rocks are those little things that are there that you can go clear, and we'll talk about that in a minute, how you might be able to do that. And then there's these boulders that, let's just imagine that every day you walk on this path and there's this huge boulder, and you just come across this boulder and you're like, okay, I'm not going over it, so I'm going to go around it. And every day you come across this boulder and you go around it. And you come across this boulder and you go around it. And if someone were to ask you, hey, how's your walk in the morning? Do you notice anything that, gets in your way? You're like, no. But meanwhile, you're walking around this boulder every day.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are what I call the big boulders. And many times it was even me. Many times we have a blind spot to that, like we don't recognize it. And that's when you need another person
Yeah.
to go in and start to go through some questioning and say, okay, I think this is what it is, what might be happening. But then in my liberate process, we go through and through, it's like peeling away at the onion, because we start with the process and then we treat it with commands. So you're awake, you have your eyes closed, and you're still conscious and awake. You're not hypnotized or anything. And then we treat it. And then what happens is that as we start to treat some of that emotional content, it's like peeling away at the onion, and you start to recognize and get the wisdom of the past. Okay, so that's the liberate process. That's if you like, okay, so you go treat it yourself and you can't get to it, or you're like, okay, I keep treating it, but it keeps coming up. And that was, what's so interesting is I would write in journals about not feeling like I was wanted, not feeling chosen. And then when I was in, this process, and it was like, okay, so what do you think your belief is? It's like, I don't know. Like, it's so
Yeah.
crazy because you can't think of it. But those are the big boulders where you do need someone that can help you go in and get to the bottom of that. And it's so subtle, because it's like, we're going to go back to the path. So it's so subtle. We remove that boulder, and you go down this path again, and now you don't have the boulder, but you're just walking through, and then maybe a couple of weeks later you're like, wait, something's different.
Mm.
I'm not going around that boulder anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's so much faster, it's so much easier,
Mm.
that's really what that's like. But if it's the rocks, there's a process that you can do, and it really takes that commitment to creating the space for yourself. So you're going to recognize that thing that either disturbed you, that you had to be judgeful, you felt like you had to complain, you reacted to it and you didn't want to, any of those things that you go back and you question, like, why did I do that? So then you create this space for yourself where you can be alone, and just so that first one is asking your question, what are the facts about that? Just write it down, writing down the facts. And then the second question is, then you're asking yourself, what is the story that I'm creating about that? because we all have a story that supports this process, that supports it. And that is really supported by our belief, and our belief changes our reality and what we think about. Then that third question is, what would someone, and I like to take it third person, because sometimes if you get it too close, you can't think of it. What would someone who created that story about those facts, what would they have to believe about themselves? I don't belong. I'm not enough. I have to be perfect. I had to have it right. Or in my head, I was better than that other person, or, whatever the case, it becomes pretty clear. And then you ask yourself, is that true for me today? Is that really true? Because the belief that I've chosen to accept is that as a soul, we are everything we're looking for. We have happiness, we're joy, we're love, we're empowerment, we're free, we have it all, but we're all covered up with all this gunk. And it isn't true, because at your true beingness, you are abundant, you are free, you are empowered, you are all of that. But you have beliefs that have disassociated you from this truth of who you are. So you ask yourself, and that's why you might need someone as well, because sometimes if you get to that part and you don't really believe, you're like, is it true? And you can't say, no, it's not true. That's not who I am. Then there's still a strong belief in there that's pulling you, keeping you there. And then that last one is, what for me today, what is it that I choose to believe? What do I choose to believe about this situation? And what can I do the next time to do this differently? And that will slowly start to shift. Like, I just did that this morning. I get in these phases where I get up every day and I say, okay, what's there for me to release? And I'll go through that process. But I definitely do it if I get triggered. I really, really am in this set that everything that happens, I point the finger back on me. And there was a good example of this that I just want to leave with you. And that is, it's like you're looking in the mirror and you see this smudge here, and you're looking, and you're like, what is that smudge? So you start cleaning the mirror and the smudge doesn't come off. That's because we're looking outside of ourselves trying to fix it, versus, oh, the smudge is here, I have to clean it here. And so that's really everything. The biggest advice I have is every single darn thing is a mirror, and not a bad way, it can be a good way.
Yeah.
So if you meet someone that just really makes you feel good, and the joy or the love, that's in you. You wouldn't feel that if that wasn't in you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome that you have pointed that out, because so many people can fixate on the like, oh, well, if I'm experiencing these things, that means it's my fault. And then like, I don't want it to be my fault, right? So there's that part of it. The other thing you said too was it's so much easier for us to see these things in other people. Like, I'll be talking to my girlfriends or watching something, and I'll be like, oh, well, their problem is da 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 da, and they have an
Yes.
internal belief of da 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 da, and they don't feel safe having blah 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 blah. But when
Yeah.
I'm like doing it to myself, I'm like, oh, I mean, I don't know. Is it this? Is it this? And you kind of get hung up because, like you said, it's hard to see your own blind spots, right? And
Yes.
what areas that you are having the issues with. So
Can I
I
tell you
know.
something? Because you even see it in someone else, that's in you. That's something in you that can be released. You
Yeah.
wouldn't recognize it. It wouldn't hit your radar as something that would stir in you anything other than neutrality, if it wasn't something in you to be released.
Yes, that's a good point, because I remember back when I was having these issues at these employment, and the coworker or the supervisor, and it would be like, I can't get along with these people, they're picking on me, whatever. And then I was like, I kind of got to this place where I was like, what she just said to me, if she said that to Bethany, Bethany wouldn't care. Bethany wouldn't get upset. Bethany wouldn't go in the bathroom and cry. So why
Yeah.
is Candace losing her shit over this, right? And
Yeah.
so then I had to be like, okay, well, clearly I'm at a place where what this dynamic is bringing up something unresolved within me. Something it's touching on a nerve that I
Yes.
have that other people would be like, whatever, I don't care what she, you know what I mean? Because I had literally coworkers sitting next to me who they would experience the same interaction with this supervisor and they didn't care. They're like, whatever, that's
Right.
her issue, and they didn't lose any sleep over it as to where I'm spiraling. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the things is when you can notice that your reaction is different from the reactions of people around you, that gives you something to work with. Like that's a clue, right? That there's something there. And then
Yeah.
you said too, the judgment is a lot of, I like to say it's a shadow thing, an unprocessed, unaccepted shadow part of us. A lot of times when like we're like, oh, that person is this, oh, that I think that guy is that, it's usually something within ourselves that we have cut off and said, this is bad, I don't like this, I don't want this to be a
Yeah.
part of who I am. And instead of accepting that part and saying, yes, maybe sometimes I am like that person, or
Yeah.
there are parts of me that would do that same thing that that person's doing if I were in a certain situation, right? Because we don't, usually in childhood, we were told, like, let's say lying. Lying is bad. Don't lie. It's evil. You're going to burn in hell if you lie, or whatever the programming you were given from your
Yeah.
family. And so if you see someone lying, you're automatically, oh, that's so horrible, that's so wrong. Even though we lie all the time about, maybe we're lying about little things, we're not lying about catastrophic things, but still, it's a part of us that we've like walled off and said, this is unacceptable. And so I'm going to alienate it instead of looking at it with a lens of compassion and understanding and kind of being like, oh, this part of me needs to be integrated, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And you touched on something as well where, that compassion, it's really having that compassion, but it's hard to have that compassion until you, one, are aware of it. And two, you've almost released it where you can come back and, have that compassion because the judgment just keeps us so separated from it.
Yeah. So when you're talking about this process of like the rocks and the boulders, so we're finding basically beliefs, underlying subconscious beliefs, right?
Yeah.
So if my belief is, let's go back to the supervisor scenario since we've already touched on it. If my belief is that I'm a victim and people are allowed to bully me and there's nothing I can do about it, then I'm going to keep bringing those experiences into my life. And so you can leave the job, you can get a new job, you can become self-employed, but you're like, I was laughing to my therapist because I was in a shopping center. It was very busy. There was like an event there, and I was waiting for a parking spot, and this lady like blocked it with her doors and said, you can't park here, my friend is parking here. And
Oh my.
so I was just like furious. And I had to be like, again, somebody else, if they were sitting here waiting for a spot, number one, they would have been like, whatever, I'll go find another spot. And it would not have spiraled them for days like it did me. Because again, it was touching on that I'm a victim, they're the bully. And this is my belief
Yes.
that I've created. And then this is the
Yes.
reality. I don't have a boss anymore. I don't like, I've kind of like got rid of all these categories where this thing can come up, and the universe or whatever, my reality is bringing it in again. It's like, nope, this is a belief we have that you're the victim and they're the bully, right? And
Yes.
so if we take that, for example, like I can take action, and I told my therapist, well, I could have gotten in a fight with her. I could have got out of my car. That would have been an action I could have taken, right? Which would be different than the normal action I take. Because that's one thing I think people will get on. Like, I've tried that. I'm like, well, let me just do the opposite of what I usually do and see if that dissipates this thing that's happening.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
doesn't usually. Like, even if I swing wildly to the other side, and maybe I'm no longer like embodying the victim. Now I'm embodying the bully or whatever, right? Like I'm trying to change dynamic, but it's not really getting to the root of that belief that's running, that programming that's running and the background, right? So how do we, if it's not through action, it's just acknowledging, okay, we figured out this is the belief. The belief is I'm a victim and other people bully me and I can't, I can't do anything about it. So how do you reprogram that belief?
Yeah, it's when you it's bringing awareness to it. If it's a rock, and actually,
For
when
me,
we're
it's
going through the
probably a boulder, honestly. It's
yeah,
unbelievable.
yeah, I would imagine because it's going back to the I'm get bullied is just a symptom of that the root belief. It's just the energy that goes out that you get that reaction back to you. Um, Essentially, when I go through the process, you're just bringing the awareness to it again, because you're bringing the space. We don't stop and we don't bring awareness because this is energy that just wants to be released, but we just keep letting the program run. So when you stop and you bring that awareness to it, and you question it, you start, if it's something small, and you could do it with this parking space. You could say, okay, what were the facts? What was the story that I was telling myself? I'm getting bullied again. I always get bullied. I'm a victim. That's your story. And then if you can even take that back, well, what's the earliest memory that I have of feeling that way? How did I feel? What was the earliest memory of feeling that way? And you're going to come out with, because your belief isn't I'm a victim. That if you think, and the reason that I say that is that think of yourself of like a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old's not going to say I'm a victim. A
Mm.
5-year-old's going to say I'm bad or I don't feel safe.
Right. It was the safety. So since we'll work through this as an example for everyone, my mom was very abusive and controlling to us as children. So it was probably happening when I was in diapers where she would
Yes.
lash out physically and hurt us or scream at us or, whatever. Um, so I had no control over it and it was attached to safety. Like, if you say no to your mom or you throw a book at her or whatever,
Yeah.
your life is literally in danger at that stage,
Yeah.
right? And so um that's what it's tying back to. So it is a safety thing, right? So if we get to the root of it, it's I'm not
And
safe to stop this situation.
or what if you say this? It's not safe to be me.
Mm, yeah. Or it's not safe to exist or to be seen or something along those lines.
Yes. And so if you think of that process, it's not safe to be me. And, how does that feel to not feel safe to be you?
Yeah, that's terrifying because then it's like, well, you can't not exist. You can't not be yourself, right? Like what else
Yes,
could you
you're just
be?
you're just a little kid. You don't know how to be anything different. You're just
Yeah,
being who you are, and it's met with that's not okay. And
yeah,
not only is it's not okay, it gets you in a place where you feel afraid to even be who you are. And
yeah.
that energy just continues to exist. And the question is, if you question that, is it not safe to be Candace?
In my current day reality, that's not true anymore. It is safe to be Candace now in this moment where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the absence, if you never believed that you were not safe, what would Candace be? What would be available to Candace?
Wow. Yeah, when you flip it like that, you're like, my life would probably be completely different. Like everything about it would be different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that it's that process that runs that keeps it in that mindset, and it keeps you creating the reality, because you actually do. If you think about, our brain cannot take in everything that it is. It has to filter. So it only filters it based on the belief. So it filters yours by this, it's not safe to be me. So it's those things that get attracted to you because it's that vibrational, we're vibrational beings that attract that energy because if anything, your ego needs to be right about it, needs to say, find evidence for it. See, it's not safe. See, it's not safe. See, it's not safe. But at the end of that, if you can say, okay, it's not true that it's not safe for me to be me, or it's not safe for me to exist, then what is really available to me without that?
Yeah. So as we're like working through this right now, it's almost like my brain can't imagine what that would look like, right?
Because
Like,
it's a new world to you. You've been
yeah,
living in this world for your whole life. Yeah.
yeah. So it would take, I think it would take me at least like 15 minutes of just kind of sitting with it to kind of reimagine what that would be an experience for me, right?
Yeah.
In this moment.
Yeah, and through the process that we go through, the liberate process, that we're running commands that are neutralizing those emotional aspects that are coming up. The other thing about memories, especially in something like this, there's so many patterns that run, so many scenarios, and like they kind of get put on top of each other. That might be the other reason why you have a blind spot, is that because they get so many different scenarios that you may not be getting to that root of
Yes.
that
Yeah.
belief.
Yeah. So if we take, for example, when I've done like childhood inner child work, or like self hypnosis, or even EMDR, a lot of times the memories that are coming forward are not the original one. It's one of the more, like you said, once, and I know there's a book, I'll link it in the show notes. It's written by a woman about our brains and how once we have an experience, our brain will look for more information to confirm. I think it's
Yes.
called confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. Yeah.
Yes, right. So once we have a belief that it is not safe, like you said, my brain will constantly be going, it's not safe, and it'll just keep showing me more, it's not safe. So when I'm doing like this regress memory thing, or whatever you want to call it, it'll bring up something from when I was 10 or something from when I was 7, but that's not the original one. And so, yeah, it's really, especially for people who have complex PTSD, it's very tangled. It's like a web where things are all touching on each other, right? Like, because we did have this foundational thing, like for you, it was the adoption, right? Where it was, so then from that moment forward, you're constantly filtering in confirmation of that, right? So for me, it
Yeah.
would be constantly filtering in information that I'm not safe and I'm being bullied or I'm being threatened or whatever. So yeah, I think that, like you said, it is kind of hard to get down to the core, that's like the thing that started it, because if it
Yeah.
started in infancy, then how your brain doesn't even store memories the same way they do once you get a little bit older, right? Like you were
Yeah.
talking about, our brain development from 0 to 7 is completely different than once we reach after that milestone.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, part of that will have released in just our discussion. It's a big one. So it's, hard to know how much of it will release because we just brought awareness to it. And it's just going back to that younger part of you and recognizing, that fear and having that compassion
Yeah,
for that little girl who was just trying to be herself and, had a parent that was going through whatever that they were going through that couldn't accept you where you were. And it, especially with their frustration or um, however they met you with that, having that compassion and knowing that as the Candace that you are, that just was an experience that you had and a belief that you created, but
right.
not really true of who you are, and thinking about if that belief never existed, if you had this childhood where you were met with the love and the compassion and the support to express yourself fully as you are, what would be available to you? Who could
Yeah.
you become?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's especially for the listeners who've had like childhood things where it started so early. It's kind of like that's like almost like an infinity of choices, right? Opens up to you on how your experience could be
Yeah.
because it's a lot of people who have complex PTSD, it is because they had repeated childhood stuff. Now, other people can get it from domestic violence or other things, but it's a repeated thing. So, um, figuring out like, wow, to create a new reality where that belief isn't running the show anymore is kind of like, whoa, I this could have happened or this could have happened or that could have happened or my dynamics with myself and my relationship to the outer world would have been so different. So, and I'm not trying to like make this a session for myself,
No,
but I think
what
it's a
what
good
you're saying
example.
is that the other thing is that what you're talking about. I remember when I said when I was in school I didn't have the resources
Yeah.
to do that, and that's what happens when we're caught in that constant survival and fight or flight. The other empowering part of this process is that we're running unconsciously. We're letting the program run. So when you come back and you create that space for it, then you're able to stop, because the way that our brains work is that if we're in constant fight or flight,
Mhm.
it actually pulls resources from our cognitive part
Right.
of our brain. And so we can't think. That's when people say, when I'm so afraid, I don't know what to do. Well, that's exactly right,
Yeah.
because it's pulling resources away. But because when you use this part of your brain, it's very resource intensive. It
Mhm.
takes a lot of oxygen. It takes a lot of energy to use this. That's when you learn something new and then you're tired. Your life's like, I'm so tired all the time because it's using so many resources. So when you're in a constant state, you just don't have the resources to use that part of your brain. So if you can create that space and then writing down the facts, just start to take the emotional part out of it. And then what is the story? It's
Yeah.
just bringing some awareness. The present moment and awareness will really set you free, because hurt and scared happen when we're trying to be in the past or in the future, neither which exist.
Yeah.
We're not in the now. We're just trying to be, reliving our past, or we're afraid of something's going to happen in the future. So it's when you create the space, you start to bring awareness and presence to what's happening, and it will start to release. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I think this work is so important. I wish more people were trained in it and more therapists were taught this at their colleges or universities, whatnot, because I think it's so missing from the healing realm for people to access this type of stuff. I have a program that I paid out of pocket for, and it's a manifestation program and it's focused on money. But the core of what she's saying is exactly what you're saying. What story are you telling yourself? You figure
Yeah.
out there's a belief there, right? The belief is that I'm not safe. And the story that I'm telling myself is that the world is an unsafe place and I'm constantly in danger. Then how can you choose a new story, basically, or create a new story or create a new belief and then start reminding yourself of that when the situation rearises? You can say, oh, there's that story again, there's that belief again. What do I want to do with it? I can look at it with compassion and love and understand that it was a survival mechanism that I needed to get through whatever happened in my past. But here and now, in this present moment, I can choose a new belief and I can write a new story, right?
Yeah.
And even I found for me at the beginning, it seems a little bit like make believe, like fairy tale. But if I just keep working on it, right, then eventually it's like like we're shrinking the boulder almost, is what it feels like as I'm doing this work around my stories and my beliefs. It's like, okay, the next time I come to the boulder, maybe it's not taking up the whole path, it's just taking up 3/4 of the path,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
so I know, is there, for you, when you're seeing this work with people, what does that process look like if you're doing direct work with them and you're coming across the boulders? Like, how do you see them improve, and where they know that they're making progress, and you know all that?
Yeah, we neutralize, we peel away as much as we can, but usually there's a shift. There's like you see this aha, this wisdom, like, oh my gosh. I've even had people that I've worked with, someone that I worked with to stop smoking, and she's like, oh my gosh, I can taste the cigarette just like leaving. I'm like, wow, that's weird. That one gave me a little bit of chills, but and then because whatever you remove or you neutralize, you want to replace. It's like, well, okay, because what is possible, just like what you said, because you've lived in this world that you only know this, and now when you remove that, what is possible?
Yeah.
What can you do? What do you think now? And it's reinforcing that, and then doing some things. Maybe it's I've done intentions. I've done, okay, so say this intention every day, because your brain doesn't know. Crazy enough, you probably heard this, it doesn't know reality from non-reality. I mean, you can feel joy and teach your system to be in joy by continuing to practice. You don't know what it's like at first, like happiness. I didn't even know what that really felt like. And then you can continue to teach your mind what that is. Yeah, you can replace those old, you can overwrite some of those old beliefs. If they're really strong ones, if like that 5-step process, if you go through and you address it and then replace it, it'd probably be a little bit more effective.
Yeah. So the 5-step process then would be like writing the facts of the
Yep.
story, and then um looking at them and seeing, like, what would somebody have to believe.
Before you do that, what is the story I'm telling
What's
myself?
the story I'm telling myself? And then
Yeah.
for somebody to have that story playing, what or the belief that they would have to
Yeah.
create the story. So that's number 3. So
Yep.
then what's number
And
4?
then number 4 is you're saying, is that true? When you get to that
Mm,
belief, you question it. Is that really true?
mm,
Is that true that it's not safe to be me? Well, I'm X number of years old and I've had a pretty good life and I'm not in that environment anymore. And this is just an old belief
yeah.
that, that I've created, and people aren't really out to get me.
Hmm.
They're not out to get the people. When you come down to it, what you realize is things happen. Um, but it's our story of how why they happen to us. We think they happen to us, and it's really questioning that. Is that really happening to me? Or is it this lady just had a parking spot and really wanted it for her friend? And, at that point, I can have a choice. And then when you come out with that, what's available to me? Well, what's available to me is that, I feel free. I feel free to be me. And then so if something like this were to happen again, you go into parking spot, chances are that wouldn't happen again, but just to use that as an example. But you go and someone's saving a spot, then you might have this glimpse of, oh, why is this happening to me? But then you'd say, no, it feels so good to be me, and I can make this choice. That's not what that's about. It's about them. Maybe she shouldn't have handled it the way that I would have liked her to handle it, but that's them. I'll just go find another parking spot. It becomes a neutral, like
Right.
you don't have that emotional trigger. You're just in a neutral place that now you can say, yeah, it's really not about that. And when you release that energy, um I walk on the beach on Sundays, and when I go on the beach, in the beginning, I'd pass someone and I say, hello, good morning. And they would, like, some people don't even look at you. Some people don't even acknowledge you. And it used to
Mhm.
bother me. So now I'm just like, I send them love. I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know if you know Ho'oponopono without this going
Yes.
on, yeah. And
Yeah,
then
because I live in
sometimes I say, I
Hawaii.
love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. It's not for them. It's for you because you felt something within you. Oh, I felt like they didn't acknowledge me. They didn't say hi. That's me. So I say Ho'oponopono. For me, it releases the energy for them as well, but it will
Mm.
more
Yeah.
importantly release it here.
It's funny that the same program that I was talking about where you identify the underlying belief in the story and you write a new story and then therefore creating a new belief. She also says that when you're coming up against something like like for instance my mother in this scenario with the whole like I don't feel safe to exist, right? And so you can say to your mother in your mind or whatever, I love you or I forgive you. I'm sorry for the part that I played. I release you. And if you can, say I love you. There's a lot of times I was talking to my friend about this. I'm like, I can't say I love you yet. I'm not there yet. But I can say
Yeah. Yeah.
I forgive you. I'm sorry for the part that I played and I release you. And then eventually, once it like the more I do that, it diminishes and diminishes and diminishes until I can say, I send you love. I hope the best for you. I
And
want,
you'll feel it. And you'll feel it.
yeah,
I was so mad at both my moms because the one gave me up and then the other one died. And
yeah.
I, for the longest time, was such a victim to that, was so mad. And I just was not, um, could only see it that one way. And then when I released all this, I had this just in the process because it feels like a meditation that we do. And
Mhm.
in this process, I was at the beach with my mom that had passed, and was sitting there, and this man came up and actually handed me my heart. Now, this is in my
Right.
meditation, handed me my heart. And I really felt like that reclaimed. But then once I was able to release all that, I just got this profound love of my biological mom. She wanted a better life for me. She did not have an easy life, and she had other children, and she really wanted me. How fortunate was I to have this other life? In fact, I do a gratitude every day, and
Mhm.
this week she's been on my gratitude every day of this
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
And then my adopted mom for just the 12 years. She was so strong. She was such a role model. How lucky was I to have
Mhm.
that for 12 years? And you just really it shifts your whole perspective,
Yeah,
because you're seeing it through this pain, but now you can see it through this powerful being that you are, this
yeah.
loving being.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think like you said, it happens in phases where I got to a place with both my parents where I could kind of release the judgment from them being like, you failed me and you fucked me up or whatever, right? And go to a place where I was like, they were really suffering within themselves. They have a lot, both of them have extreme self-hatred, extreme issues that they they couldn't process. Basically, most of us are projecting stuff out that is really about us, right? And so
Yeah,
um I came to a place where I was like, oh, they didn't hate me. They didn't want to kill me. They didn't want to punish me. They wanted to do that to themselves. And I just
yeah.
happened to be in their field, you know what I mean, within their purview. And so once I was able to have compassion and empathy and understanding towards them, it's like it took it down a bunch of notches. And then I was able to say, okay, so if that's how they were operating, and that's the place that they were existing in, I can feel compassion for them and I can feel like, I can learn to start forgiving them as a process, right? Like I still may be upset and things that they may be doing current day may be disturbing to me, but it's a much different energy than being in that like, oh, I'm so, you ruined my life, or like you said, blaming and not taking accountability for things. Um, so I don't
And
want to.
what's really incredible is that when you get to that process, you're going to come back and the person that the needs it the most is you
Yeah.
to because I felt abandoned, my entire life. And then what came back to me is that I abandoned me. I abandoned every part of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny too, because when we can, like, that was one of the realizations as I was doing the shadow work, is like, there was a part of myself that I was like hating myself, right? Or a part of myself that thought that I didn't deserve to live or whatever. And once I was able to start saying, I love myself, I accept myself, I'm worthy of life, I'm worthy of existing, and all these things, it was a huge emotional and mental shift for me and how I related to other people. It's like not a magic pill and it doesn't fix everything overnight, but it was a
Yeah.
huge, massive improvement. Um, and again, unfortunately, it didn't come from therapy. It usually came from these things like these meditations I would find on YouTube, or these programs, or people like following people like you on Instagram or TikTok or wherever, and picking up the stuff that they were putting down in little pieces and little bites and integrating it on a day-to-day basis. And so I really encourage the listener to find somebody that you're resonating with and that you're hearing things and you're like, oh, this makes sense, this clicks, this connects, and just keep going back to it and going back to it and going back to it. Even if they can't afford to pay for your services and get the full shebang, if they can start consuming these things in little bites on a daily basis and filling themselves up, I do really believe it is a reprogramming we have to do
Yeah.
of our subconscious, right? And it's, people think, I'm going to go take ayahuasca and then I'm going to be enlightened and all my problems are going to be gone, but it doesn't really work like that. It's like a chipping away and a
It
working
is.
over and over again of this. And I was talking to one of my friends who were like, oh, I wish, like, I wish you could just like process the thing one time and then it never come back again, but it just will reappear and shapeshift until you've really, really got it down, whittled down to where it's like the boulders literally turned into
Yeah.
dust on your path.
Yeah. And the reason it can't, because this was really um, something that was a aha to me, because when I was going through this process, I wanted to change now. I wanted
Mhm.
this lightning bolt to come down, just change now. Like, I just wanted it now. And the reason it can is, think about it. Wherever age that you're at this point, you've created this whole identity that now is attached to a job, that's attached to family, that's attached to friends, that's attached to this environment, that's attached to this house, that's attached. All these things are supporting you in this environment. And when you shift, everything has to
Like a
shift,
domino, like an earthquake.
right? Everything has to shift. So if you were to shift right now, just think how much around you that would have to shift, but also you don't have the tools, because as those little iterative changes happen, you gain the tools. You
Mm.
gain the tools to help you to manage through that process. And so that, now I understand why it's a journey, and that as you shed, you gain, and you shed and you gain, and you shed and you gain. And then it's like, you have this incredible being inside of you, just chipping little bits away till you get to it. And it's a ongoing process. You're never going to get fully there. I
Yeah,
used to
yeah,
think it was a destination. It's a journey.
yeah.
And you're just shedding whatever's doesn't align with you, that doesn't resonate with who you think you are. And it's a commitment and a process.
Yeah, I completely agree. My astrology friend lady that I listened to had said, if you were able to do that lightning bolt process, completely transform who you are into this like fully realized self, then why are you here? Right? Like
Yeah.
your life would be meaningless because everything would be perfect. And then, what's the point of this human existence, so to speak? So, um,
Yeah.
well, would you like to share with everybody where they can find you if they want to work with you? I think your work sounds so it would be so beneficial if people could do the work with you, or
Yeah.
at least learn from you and start implementing it in their daily lives, because this stuff that you're talking about, even though I have found it through other people in little bits and crumbs here and there, it really has changed my life for the better. And I think it can really revolutionize people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is donnamkendall.com, and my TikTok handle is at Ignite Your Soul 22. And on my website, I offer the Liberate individual sessions, which I've been doing for a while. I used to do some journaling sessions. I might be bringing those back up, like weekly journaling, where you journal and then we neutralize the things that are coming up. I'm getting ready to start probably in the fall. A 14-week women's group where you go through and we have uh, every week we meet, and then up to a certain number of weeks. I think it might be the 8th week, and then we give you this. Now you're landed at this place where you think you want to be, and then we spread it out. Then in 2 weeks you go and you try and immerse, and integrate those things, and then you come back, and then we neutralize whatever's not there, and then now we go out 3 weeks and you try it and neutralize it, because it really is about releasing and then coming back into that place that you are. So that women's group. And then also in the fall, I'll be doing another trip to Sedona. I just took 6 women in April, and we go to Sedona. We stay at a place. And if you haven't been or know much about Sedona, it's a huge energy area.
I've
They
heard
have a lot
that.
of vortexes, and so I have relationship with practitioners. So we've gone and we've done these Tibetan sound bowls that release. The lady connects to the soul, and she sees what's going on and helps release it from a soul level. And then shamanic breathing that just is incredible. We go through a breathing, and in that, just all of anything that doesn't serve you just comes out. It comes out either in tears or in laughing. And at one point, we got into this laughing, and we were probably laughing for like 8 minutes or so. It just was so infectious. And then we had another shaman come and help us with. It was all in self-love. So anyway, I have that coming up in the fall. So it's all in support of women, of you stepping into it. It's doing what ignites your soul. It's living your life of what lights you up inside. And when you come from that awareness, you identify with life differently, not in this grind that you have to do the work. It's like, what really will light me up, and what can I bring into my day that lights me up? And now for me, it's extended into my body and my nutrition, and even the way that I take care of myself, because then I feel good, and that lights me up. So
Yeah, it's all connected, it's all reinforcing itself. I personally want to learn more about the Sedona trip, because that sounds amazing. And a couple of my friends have talked about doing that, going to Sedona and, you know, just having that experience, because we've heard it's a phenomenal place. But
it is.
yeah,
It's just so incredible.
yeah. So, okay, well, I will put your website in the show notes. I'll put your TikTok in the show notes. I will make sure everybody can connect with you. And
Yeah.
I really enjoy this conversation. I feel like we could talk for days and days about
Yeah,
this
we
stuff.
could.
It's so fascinating. And I think it's so important for people who haven't done any of this work to start to experience it. So thank you so much, Donna. I really appreciate you coming on today, and hope you have a great afternoon. And thank you
Yeah.
everyone for listening to this week's episode.
Yes. Thank you, Candace. Very much enjoyed it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.